Admiral Zexton stood in front of the big screen, his 4 eyes wide with shock. He had been protecting the Empire's most important space for over 300 years, but he had never seen anything like this before. Around him, younger officers ran between control panels, their voices getting louder with worry. "Check the readings one more time," Zexton ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. Lieutenant Kryllox worked frantically at the sensor controls. This was the 6th time he had checked everything in the last 15 minutes. "Sir, all systems are working perfectly. We detect one ship, type unknown, coming toward us from direction 27 Mark IV. Distance is about 50,000 kilometers and getting closer." "That cannot be right," growled Commander Vextar from his battle station. "Nothing gets within 1,000,000 kilometers of our capital system without permission. Our defense systems would have destroyed any unauthorized ship long before it reached our detection area." Zexthon felt nervous, something that rarely happened to him. The capital system of Zephyria Prime was the most protected place in the entire Empire. Layer after layer of weapons, early warning systems, and patrol ships created a barrier that had never been broken in over 2,000 years. "Run a complete check on all defense systems," he commanded. "I want to know how something got past our sensors." Time passed slowly as reports came in from all over the system. Every patrol ship, every monitoring station, every automated guard confirmed the same impossible truth. They had detected nothing until this very moment. "Sir," Kryllox called out, his voice shaking slightly, "we are getting a better look at the unknown ship. It appears to be built in an organic style with what looks like weapons along its hull." "Organic?" Zexthon moved closer to the display. "Show me." The image became clearer, showing a smooth ship unlike anything in the Imperial database. Its hull curved in flowing lines that seemed grown rather than built. Weapon ports dotted its surface in smart locations, and strange parts stuck out from various points along its length. "Computer, compare this with all known ship designs," Zexthon commanded. After a moment, the ship's computer responded in its calm voice. "No match found in Imperial databases. Design suggests non-Imperial origin." A cold feeling ran through the command center. Non-Imperial ships in the capital system could mean only one thing: invasion. "Sir," Kryllox's voice cracked with excitement and fear, "I am detecting energy signatures that match human technology." The command center became completely silent. Every officer turned to stare at the sensor officer as if he had just said the dead were walking. "Human?" Vexitar's voice was barely a whisper. "That is impossible. Humans are barely past their first trips between stars. They do not have the technology to reach this system, let alone get through our defenses." Zexthon felt his blood turn cold. Humans were indeed considered one of the galaxy's most primitive species. They had only learned to travel faster than light within the last 50 years, and were limited to a small area on the galaxy's outer edge. The idea that they could threaten the mighty Galactic Empire was laughable, or it had been, until now. "Make the image bigger," he ordered. As the picture became clearer, details emerged. Along the ship's hull, barely visible but definitely there, were markings in the angular writing style of humans. And there, painted in bold letters across the ship's front, were words that would soon shock the entire Empire. "USS Liberty. Buying the Ancient Ones," Vextar breathed. "It really is human." Zexthon's mind raced. How was this possible? Human technology was centuries behind Imperial standards. Their ships were crude, slow, and could not travel far. The very idea that they could develop hiding technology advanced enough to fool Imperial sensors was beyond belief. "Sir, the ship is trying to contact us," reported Communications Officer Delia. "Put it through," Zexthon replied, preparing himself for whatever was coming. The main screen changed, and suddenly they were looking at the bridge of the human ship. The sight that greeted them was both familiar and strange. The bridge was small by Imperial standards, filled with displays and controls that looked primitive. But it was the crew that captured their attention. Humans sat at various stations, their faces calm and professional. At the center of the bridge stood a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform. He was tall for his species, with graying hair and steady blue eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Starship Liberty," the human said, his voice carrying clearly across the communication channel. "Requesting permission to approach Zephyria Prime for diplomatic purposes." The boldness of the request left the Imperial officers speechless. Here was a representative of one of the galaxy's most primitive species, having somehow gotten through the Empire's most secure system, calmly asking for permission to approach the capital world as if this were a normal diplomatic visit. Zexthon found his voice first. "Human vessel, you are violating Imperial space. Explain immediately how you got through our defensive barrier." Captain Morrison's expression did not change, but there was something in his eyes that might have been amusement. "With respect, Admiral, that is exactly what we have come to discuss. We have a proposal that I believe will be of great interest to the Empire. You will shut down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Vextar interrupted, his voice hard with authority. "I am afraid that will not be possible, Commander," Morrison replied smoothly. "We are here under diplomatic protection, carrying messages from the United Earth government to the Imperial Council. Any hostile action against our ship would be an act of war." The complete confidence in the human's voice was disturbing. Here was a single ship, vastly outnumbered and outgunned in the heart of the Empire's power, and its captain was talking about diplomatic protection and acts of war as if he held all the advantages. Zexthon made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Stand by, human vessel. Do not change course or direction. Any change will be considered a hostile act." He cut the communication and turned to his officers. "Get me Imperial Command, Priority Alpha. We have a situation that requires immediate attention from the highest levels." As alarms began to sound throughout the fortress, one thought echoed in every Imperial mind present. How did a human battleship get this close? The human ship hung in space like a challenge to everything the Empire believed about itself. For over 2,000 years, no unauthorized vessel had penetrated the capital system's defenses. The very idea was considered impossible by Imperial military doctrine. Yet there it was. Admiral Zexthon looked at the tactical display showing the positions of his defensive fleet. Hundreds of Imperial warships surrounded the single human vessel, enough firepower to reduce it to atoms in seconds. But somehow, that display of overwhelming force felt hollow. If humans could appear in the heart of Imperial space without warning, what other surprises might they have prepared? The communication panel chimed with an incoming priority transmission from Imperial Command. Grand Admiral Thulonwick's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "Admiral Zexthon, report your status immediately." "Grand Admiral, we have a single human warship in the capital system. They claim to be here on a diplomatic mission. The ship somehow bypassed all our early warning systems and defensive barriers." "Human?" The Grand Admiral's voice carried disbelief. "Admiral, humans do not possess the technology for such an infiltration." "Nevertheless, sir, they are here. The ship identifies itself as the USS Liberty, commanded by Captain Jake Morrison. They are requesting diplomatic audience with the Imperial Council." There was a long pause as the Grand Admiral processed this information. "Admiral, maintain your current positions but take no hostile action until further orders. We are convening an emergency session of the Imperial Council. This situation requires evaluation at the highest levels." As the transmission ended, Zexthon turned back to the main display. The human ship remained motionless, neither advancing nor retreating. It simply waited, as if its captain knew that his mere presence had already achieved its purpose. The age of Imperial invincibility had just ended, and everyone in the command center knew it. The Imperial Council chamber on Zephyria Prime had not seen such panic in over 500 years. Grand Admiral Thulonwick stood before the massive round table where the Empire's most powerful leaders had gathered in emergency session. Screens surrounded the chamber, showing live feeds from Fortress Station Omega and the impossible sight of a human warship hanging in space just hours away from the capital world. "Explain to me again," said Chancellor Mordex, the Empire's chief civilian leader. How a species that we classified as primitive and harmless managed to get past every single one of our defense systems. Grand Admiral Thulonwick looked troubled. The technical analysis is still being done, Chancellor, but early reports suggest they have developed some form of hiding technology that makes their ship nearly invisible to our sensors. Nearly invisible? Interrupted Defense Minister Yalgoth. They were completely invisible until they chose to show themselves. Our entire defense grid might as well be made of toys for all the good it did. The council chamber erupted in heated discussion as various officials tried to assign blame and demand explanations. At the head of the table, Emperor Krexnol, the EU-15th, raised one of his 6 arms for silence. The chamber immediately became quiet. The question of blame can be addressed later, the Emperor said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. What concerns me now is the immediate threat. General Tevak, what is our current military response status? General Tevak, head of planetary defense, looked at his tactical display. Your Majesty, we have moved the 3rd Fleet to surround the human vessel. 27 battleships, 43 cruisers, and over 100 support vessels are now in position to attack, if necessary. And what does our intelligence tell us about this human ship's abilities? Chief Intelligence Officer Nexril stepped forward, her usual confidence clearly missing. That is problematic, Your Majesty. Our intelligence on human military capabilities is apparently severely outdated. Based on our latest assessments from 50 years ago, humans had only basic fusion drives and primitive projectile weapons. The vessel currently in our system shows technology that should not exist in their civilization for centuries to come. Could they have received outside help? Asked Chancellor Mordex. Perhaps the rebellion has made contact with them. Unlikely, replied Nexril. Our monitoring stations would have detected any major technology transfers. This appears to be entirely human innovation. Emperor Krexnol leaned back in his massive throne, thinking about this information. The implications were staggering. If humans had developed advanced hiding technology on their own, what other capabilities might they possess? More importantly, how many other primitive species had the Empire underestimated? Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Thulonwick said, there is another concerning aspect to this situation. The human captain, this Morrison, claims to be here on a diplomatic mission. He is requesting formal audience with the Council. Diplomatic mission. Defense Minister Yalgoth's voice rose with anger. They violate our most secure space and then claim diplomatic immunity? The boldness is remarkable, admitted Chancellor Mordex. But we must consider the implications. If they truly have developed this hiding technology, how many more ships like this might they have? How many might already be positioned throughout our territory without our knowledge? The silence that followed this observation was deep. The Empire's strength had always rested on its technological superiority and the security provided by its vast sensor networks and defensive systems. If humans could make these advantages meaningless, the balance of power in the galaxy might have shifted overnight. Supreme military analysis, ordered the Emperor. Project the potential threat level, if human capabilities match what we have observed. The chamber's central display shifted to show a tactical analysis. Red zones spread across a map of Imperial space, indicating potential human infiltration points. The simulation ran through various scenarios, each more disturbing than the last. If humans possess a fleet of vessels with similar capabilities, the analysis concluded, they could potentially strike at any target within the Empire with little to no advance warning. Our current defensive doctrine would be largely ineffective. General Tevak studied the display with growing alarm. Your Majesty, if this assessment is accurate, these humans may pose a greater threat than the rebellion ever has. The rebellion, at least, uses technology we understand. This changes everything. There is something else, Chief Intelligence Officer Nexril added reluctantly. Our psychological profiles on humans indicate they are remarkably adaptable and innovative. If they have achieved this level of advancement in hiding technology, it is likely they have made similar breakthroughs in other areas we have not yet discovered. Emperor Krexnol stood, his imposing figure casting shadows across the chamber. Summon Admiral Zexthan, I want a direct report on this Captain Morrison's behavior and demands. Within minutes, Admiral Zexthon's image appeared via communication link from Fortress Station Omega. The stress was clearly visible on his features. Your Majesty, he began with a formal bow. The human vessel remains in position, making no threatening moves. Captain Morrison has repeated his request for diplomatic audience and has provided preliminary credentials from something called the United Earth Government. What is your assessment of their intentions, Admiral? Asked Chancellor. Mordex. Difficult to determine, sir. The captain appears calm and professional. He has made no demands or threats, but his very presence here demonstrates capabilities we never suspected. He seems confident, as if he believes he holds a strong negotiating position. Which he does, muttered Defense Minister Yalgoth Emperor. Krexnall made his decision. Admiral, inform Captain Morrison that the Empire will grant him an audience. He will be permitted to approach Zephyria Prime under escort, but any deviation from the prescribed course will result in immediate destruction of his vessel. Your Majesty, General Tevak protested, bringing an enemy vessel to the capital world is exactly what we must do, the Emperor finished. We need to understand what we are dealing with. If humans have truly achieved this level of technological advancement, then we must reassess our entire relationship with their species. Better to negotiate from a position of knowledge than to react from fear and ignorance. As the council session continued, emergency protocols were activated throughout the Empire. Fleet commanders received new orders. Intelligence services were tasked with immediate reassessment of human capabilities, and diplomatic corps began preparing for what might be the most significant first contact scenario in Imperial history. Intelligence. Officer Nexaril approached the Emperor's throne with a new report. Your Majesty, we have just received disturbing news from our outer monitoring stations. They are reporting several sensor anomalies in systems near human space. What we initially dismissed as equipment malfunctions may actually be additional human vessels. The Emperor's expression darkened. How many anomalies? At least a dozen, possibly more. If these are indeed human ships using the same hiding technology, then this Captain Morrison may not be alone. Chancellor Mordex paled. Your Majesty, if humans have multiple ships with this capability, they could already have forces positioned throughout our territory. We might be surrounded and not even know it. The Emperor stood again, his mind working through the strategic implications. For millennia, the Empire had maintained control through technological dominance and the security of their borders. If humans could move freely through Imperial space undetected, then every assumption about Imperial security was now questionable. General Tevak, the Emperor commanded, I want immediate security sweeps of all critical installations. Use every sensor type we have, every detection method available. If there are more human ships in our space, I want them found. Yes, Your Majesty. But if their hiding technology is as advanced as it appears, we may not be able to detect them even with intensive scanning. Then we proceed with the assumption that they are there, the Emperor replied grimly. Alert all fleet commanders. The Empire may be facing a threat unlike any we have encountered before. As the emergency session continued into the night, one fact became increasingly clear to everyone present. The galaxy had changed in a matter of hours, and the Empire's position as the dominant power was no longer guaranteed. A species they had dismissed as primitive had demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything the Empire believed about itself. The age of Imperial technological supremacy was coming to an end, and no one knew what would replace it. Aboard the USS Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison stood in his ready room reviewing the final details of humanity's most daring plan. The room was small by Imperial standards but efficient in the way only human engineering could achieve. Every surface served multiple purposes. Every system was designed for maximum utility with minimum space. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker, his chief science officer, entered with a datapad in hand. Captain, final systems check is complete. The Chameleon, drive is holding steady and all departments report ready for the approach to Zephyria Prime. Morrison nodded, accepting the report. Any word from Earth? The quantum burst communication came through an hour ago. Admiral Stevens confirms that Phase 2 of Operation Doorstep is proceeding on schedule. The USS Freedom and USS Justice are already in position at the coordinates we discussed. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. The Empire thought they were dealing with a single human vessel that had somehow stumbled upon advanced hiding technology. They had no idea that this was just the opening move in a carefully planned chess game that had been years in the making. And, Commander Williams? Morrison asked. The USS Defiance reports successful penetration of the Altair system. The Imperial garrison there remains completely unaware of their presence. Morrison walked to the viewport, looking out at the Imperial fleet that had surrounded his ship. 27 battleships, each one capable of reducing the Liberty to atoms within seconds. Under normal circumstances, it would be suicide to face such odds, but these were far from normal circumstances. Lisa, remind me again how this all started. Lieutenant. Parker smiled, knowing her captain was reviewing the plan one more time to ensure nothing had been overlooked. 3 years ago, when the Empire destroyed the colony ship New Horizon for violating Imperial space restrictions. Morrison's expression hardened. The destruction of the New Horizon had been a turning point for humanity. 15,000 colonists, including families and children, had been vaporized without warning for the crime of entering a system the Empire claimed as their own. The Empire had dismissed it as a minor police action. For humanity, it had been a declaration of war. And then Dr. Peterson made his breakthrough, Parker continued. Morrison nodded. Dr. Richard Peterson, humanity's most brilliant physicist, had been studying captured Imperial technology from various sources for decades. His breakthrough had come from an unexpected direction. Rather than trying to match Imperial technology, he had found ways to exploit its weaknesses. The chameleon drive does not actually make us invisible, Morrison recited, as much for his own benefit as for Parker's. It makes us appear to be something else entirely. Exactly. Imperial sensors are designed to detect known threat profiles. They look for specific energy signatures, hull compositions, and drive emissions. The chameleon drive simply tells their sensors that we are a piece of space, debris or a small asteroid or background radiation, and it works because Imperial technology is so advanced that they have forgotten to account for simple deception. Parker nodded. Their sensors are incredibly sophisticated, but that sophistication makes them vulnerable to mimicry. It is like using a microscope to search for elephants. You might miss them entirely because you are looking too closely. Morrison returned to his desk and activated the secure communication system. Bridge, this is the captain. Prepare for final approach. To Zephyria Prime. Aye, sir, came the reply from Commander Tony Brooks, his executive officer. Imperial escort vessels are taking position. As the Liberty began its escorted journey toward the Empire's capital world, Morrison reflected on the audacity of their plan. Operation Doorstep had been conceived not as a military strike but as a demonstration. The goal was simple: prove to the Empire that humanity could no longer be dismissed as primitive and harmless. Captain, Parker said, consulting her datapad. Incoming transmission from the surface. It is marked as Imperial Council priority. Morrison straightened his uniform. Put it through to the main viewer. The screen activated, showing a figure that Morrison recognized from intelligence briefings. Chancellor Mordex, the Empire's chief, civilian authority. Behind him, the elaborate architecture of the Imperial Palace was visible. Captain Morrison, the Chancellor began, his voice carrying the authority of eons of Imperial rule. You will dock at Station 7 and submit to security screening before any diplomatic proceedings can begin. With respect, Chancellor, Morrison replied, his voice calm but firm. My ship will remain in orbit. Any meetings will take place either via communication link or aboard the Liberty. We are happy to receive a diplomatic party from the Empire. That is unacceptable. No foreign vessel has ever been permitted to remain in orbit around Zephyria Prime without inspection. Morrison leaned forward slightly. Chancellor, I understand this is unprecedented, but I think we both know that everything about this situation is unprecedented. The fact that my ship is here at all demonstrates capabilities that your empire did not know humanity possessed. I am here to discuss how we can avoid future misunderstandings. There was a long pause, as the Chancellor clearly consulted with advisors off-screen. When he returned his attention to Morrison, his expression had changed subtly. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain?" "A new relationship between humanity and the Empire, one based on mutual respect rather than imperial dominance." "And if the Empire is not interested in such a relationship?" Morrison's expression did not change, but something in his eyes hardened. "Then I think you will find that humanity is no longer as easily dismissed as you might prefer." The implications hung in the air like a challenge. Morrison was betting everything on the Empire's rationality, on their ability to recognize that the galaxy had just become a more complicated place. "Chancellor," Morrison continued, 3 years ago, your forces destroyed the New Horizon. 15,000 human beings died because they entered space you claimed as your own. Today, my ship sits in orbit around your capital world, having penetrated your most secure defenses without triggering so much as an automated warning. I think it is time we discuss the new reality." Chancellor Mordex was silent for several moments, clearly processing the implications. Finally, he spoke. "Captain Morrison, you will remain in orbit pending further discussions. A diplomatic team will be dispatched to your vessel within the hour." "We will be waiting, Chancellor." As the communication ended, Morrison turned to Parker. "Signal the other ships. Phase 3 is now active." "Aye, sir." "Should I inform them that the Empire is taking the bait?" Morrison looked out at the Imperial fleet surrounding his ship, then at the magnificent world of Zephyria Prime below. "Lisa, the Empire is not taking the bait. They are beginning to realize they have been swimming in a pond full of fish they never bothered to notice, and some of those fish have grown teeth." Parker moved to her console and began transmitting coded signals to the other human vessels positioned throughout Imperial space. Each ship had specific orders for Phase 3 of Operation Doorstep. The USS Freedom would reveal itself near the Empire's primary military academy, demonstrating that human ships could reach even their most protected training facilities. The USS Justice would decloak near a major Imperial shipyard, showing that humanity could strike at their industrial capacity. The USS Defiance would remain hidden, but would transmit sensor data proving human ships could monitor Imperial communications. "Captain," Parker reported, "all ships acknowledge. Phase 3 will commence in 30 minutes. Morrison nodded. Within the hour, Imperial shuttles would dock with the Liberty, and the Empire would get their first close look at just how much humanity had advanced. But Morrison knew the real revelation was yet to come. When the Empire's representatives saw the true extent of human capabilities, when they realized that the Liberty was not alone and that humanity had been preparing for this moment for years, the galaxy would never be the same. The age of humanity being dismissed as primitive was about to end, and Captain Jake Morrison was going to make sure the Empire understood exactly what that meant. The Imperial delegation boarding the USS Liberty consisted of 3 of the Empire's most senior diplomatic officials, accompanied by a full security detail and various technical specialists. Leading the group was Ambassador Prime Veltaran, a career diplomat with over 2 centuries of experience in first contact protocols. As the airlock sealed behind them, he could not help but notice the efficiency and sophistication of human engineering, details that the Empire's intelligence reports had failed to capture. Captain Morrison greeted them in the Liberty's main conference room, accompanied by his senior staff. The room itself was a study in human practicality. Every surface served multiple functions. Displays could be reconfigured instantly, and the furniture adapted to accommodate beings of different species. It was clearly designed by a people accustomed to making the most of limited resources. "Ambassador Prime Veltaran," Morrison said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Welcome aboard the Liberty." Veltaran accepted the gesture, noting the firmness of the human's grip and the steady confidence in his eyes. "Captain Morrison, I confess that your arrival has created quite a stir in Imperial circles." "I imagine it has," Morrison replied with what might have been a smile. "Please be seated. We have much to discuss." As the Imperial delegation settled around the conference table, Morrison activated the room's holographic display system. The Empire's representatives watched with growing interest as the display showed a 3-dimensional map of local space. "Before we begin formal negotiations," Morrison said, I believe it is important that you understand the full scope of the situation. The display zoomed in on the Zephyria system, showing the positions of Imperial fleet elements and the Liberty itself. But then, as Morrison touched a control, additional contacts appeared on the display. Ships that had been completely invisible to Imperial sensors suddenly materialized in the tactical plot. Ambassador Velterran felt his blood chill. Those contacts, they were not there before. They have been there all along, Morrison replied calmly. The USS Freedom, the USS Justice, and the USS Defiance. 4 human vessels, all equipped with our latest stealth technology, all currently within striking distance of critical Imperial installations. Security Chief Morthak leaned forward aggressively. Are you threatening the Empire, human? Morrison's expression remained unchanged. Not at all. I am demonstrating capability. There is a significant difference. The display shifted again, this time showing a broader view of Imperial space. Red markers appeared at dozens of locations throughout the Empire's territory. Over the past 6 months, Morrison continued, human reconnaissance vessels have conducted extensive surveys of Imperial defensive installations. We know the locations of your fleet bases, your manufacturing centers, your communication hubs. We have mapped your sensor networks, identified their blind spots, and cataloged their weaknesses. Ambassador Velterran struggled to maintain his diplomatic composure. To what end, Captain? Knowledge, Ambassador. After the destruction of the New Horizon, humanity realized that we could no longer afford to remain ignorant of Imperial capabilities and intentions. We have spent 3 years preparing for this moment. Technical specialist Kekstar, who had been quietly scanning the human ship's systems, suddenly spoke up. Ambassador, I am detecting some unusual readings from their propulsion systems. This vessel appears to be equipped with a modified fusion drive that I do not recognize. Morrison nodded to his science officer, Commander Parker, who activated another display. What you are seeing is our latest development in propulsion technology. We call it the Fusion Plus drive. It provides approximately 3 times the acceleration of standard Imperial drives while using half the fuel. Impossible, breathed Kekstar. The energy requirements alone would require a completely different approach to power generation and matter-antimatter containment, Parker finished, which we have developed. The Imperial delegation exchanged glances. Each revelation was more disturbing than the last. Not only had humans developed stealth technology that rendered Imperial defenses useless, but they had also achieved breakthroughs in propulsion and power generation that the Empire's own scientists had deemed impossible. Ambassador Velterran decided to take control of the conversation. Captain Morrison, what exactly does humanity want from the Empire? Respect, Morrison replied simply. Recognition that we are no longer the primitive species that stumbled into space 50 years ago. We want the Empire to acknowledge that humanity has earned its place as an equal partner in galactic affairs. And if the Empire is unwilling to grant such recognition, Morrison was quiet for a moment, then gestured to the tactical display still showing the positions of human ships throughout Imperial space. Then I suspect the Empire will find that maintaining its current dominance becomes considerably more challenging. Security Chief Morthak's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. You speak of challenging the Empire as if it were a minor inconvenience. We have thousands of ships, millions of troops, weapons that can destroy entire worlds. And yet, Morrison observed, 4 human ships managed to penetrate your most secure space and position themselves within striking distance of your capital world. How many more might be out there that you still have not detected? The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Every Imperial official present was now calculating the implications. If humans could do this, if they could move ships through Imperial space undetected, then every assumption about Imperial security was now suspect. Ambassador Velterran made his decision. Captain, I will need to consult with the Imperial Council. Your proposals require consideration at the highest levels. Of course, Morrison agreed. But while you are considering, I should mention that humanity has also made certain other preparations. The display changed again, this time showing recorded footage of human industrial facilities. Massive shipyards, weapons manufacturing plants, and training facilities filled the screen. In the 3 years since the New Horizon incident, Morrison explained, humanity has mobilized on a scale unprecedented in our history. We have built ships, trained crews, developed weapons, and prepared for the possibility that the Empire might not be willing to accept change. How many ships? Asked Kekstar, his voice barely above a whisper. Morrison smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Enough. Commander Parker stepped forward. Ambassador, we want you to understand that humanity does not desire war with ye, the Empire. We have seen what Imperial weapons can do. We know the cost would be enormous for both sides. But we also know that we can no longer allow ourselves to be dismissed as insignificant. The New Horizon was carrying 15,000 colonists, Morrison added, his voice hardening. Families, children, scientists, farmers, they were destroyed without warning, without provocation, simply for existing in space, the Empire claimed. Humanity will not allow that to happen again. Ambassador Velterran stood slowly. Captain Morrison, I will convey your message to the Imperial Council. But I must warn you that the Empire has faced challenges before. We have survived for millennia by maintaining order through strength. And we respect that history, Morrison replied, also standing. But history also teaches us that empires that fail to adapt to changing circumstances do not survive. The galaxy has changed, Ambassador. The question now is whether the Empire will change with it. As the Imperial delegation prepared to leave, Ambassador Velterran paused at the airlock. Captain, may I ask you something? Of course. How long have you been planning this? Morrison considered the question carefully. Since the moment we learned that the Empire considered human lives expendable, since we realized that our choice was to adapt or become extinct. And you chose to adapt. We chose to survive, Ambassador. Everything else follows from that choice. As the Imperial shuttle departed the Liberty, Ambassador Velterran found himself facing a reality he had never imagined. Humanity was no longer the primitive species the Empire had dismissed. They had become something far more dangerous. An intelligent, adaptable enemy that had learned to use the Empire's own assumptions against them. The galaxy had indeed changed, and the Empire would have to decide whether to change with it or face the consequences of a war unlike any they had ever fought. 3 days after the Liberty's arrival at Zephyria Prime, the full Imperial Council convened an emergency session. The massive chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from across the Empire debated humanity's ultimatum. Emperor Krexnol sat silently on his throne, absorbing the heated discussions while considering the intelligence reports that continued to pour in from across Imperial space. Your Majesty, reported Chief Intelligence Officer Nexril, approaching the throne with obvious reluctance. Our deep space monitoring stations have confirmed at least 17 additional human vessels moving through Imperial space. All were previously undetected, and all appear to be equipped with the same stealth technology as the Liberty. The Emperor's expression remained calm, but those who knew him well could see the calculations taking place behind his ancient eyes. Assessment of their capabilities? Substantial, Your Majesty. Our technical teams have completed their analysis of the human vessel's specifications. Their technology is not just advanced, it is innovative in ways our scientists had not considered. They have approached fundamental problems from completely different angles than our own researchers. Grand Admiral Thulanwick stepped forward. Your Majesty, with respect, we should not allow ourselves to be intimidated by a species that was using chemical rockets within living memory. Regardless of their recent advances, the Empire's military superiority remains overwhelming. Does it? Asked Chancellor Mordex. Admiral, can you guarantee that our fleets can detect and engage these human vessels before they strike critical targets? The silence that followed was answer enough. Emperor Krexnol finally spoke. Summon Captain Morrison. It is time for a direct conversation. Within an hour, Morrison materialized in the council chamber via holographic projection, his image solid and clear despite the vast distance. The human captain appeared calm and professional, showing none of the deference typically expected when addressing the Emperor. "Captain Morrison," the Emperor began, his voice carrying the weight of millennia of imperial authority. "Your actions have created a situation unprecedented in imperial history. Explain your intentions." Morrison's response was direct and unwavering. "Your Majesty, humanity seeks recognition as an equal partner in galactic affairs. We are prepared to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity, but we will no longer accept being treated as subjects of the Empire. And if the Empire refuses? Then, the Empire will find itself fighting a war unlike any in its history. Not a conventional conflict of fleets and armies, but a shadow war where we strike when and where we choose, disappearing before you can respond." Defense Minister Yalgoth leaned forward aggressively. "You speak boldly for someone whose entire species could be eliminated by a single Imperial battle group." Morrison's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Minister, 3 hours ago your personal residence on Altair 7 suffered a complete power failure. Your security systems went offline for exactly 17 minutes. Your guards found a small device on your dining room table, a device that was not there when they last checked the room." The color drained from Yalgoth's face. "How did you—" "The device was harmless," Morrison continued. "A simple holographic projector displaying a message, compliments of the USS Defiance. But it could just as easily have been something else entirely." The implications sent a chill through the chamber. If humans could penetrate the personal residences of high Imperial officials, no one was safe. Emperor Krexnall absorbed this demonstration with the calculating mind that had kept him in power for 3 centuries. "What specific terms does humanity propose?" Morrison activated a datapad, and information appeared on the chamber's displays. "First, immediate cessation of all hostile actions against human vessels and colonies. Second, recognition of human sovereignty over our current territory and expansion rights to uninhabited systems. Third, establishment of formal diplomatic relations with trade agreements. Fourth, joint research initiatives in areas of mutual interest. And in return?" asked Chancellor Mordex. "Humanity offers its technological innovations, our unique approaches to scientific problems, and our cooperation in maintaining galactic stability. We also offer to share our stealth technology with the Empire under carefully controlled conditions." The offer sent a wave of whispers through the chamber. Access to human stealth technology would revolutionize Imperial military capabilities. However, Morrison continued, these offers come with conditions. The Empire must acknowledge that the era of unilateral dominance is over. Other species, not just humanity, deserve consideration as partners rather than subjects. General Tevak stood abruptly. "You ask us to abandon principles that have maintained galactic order for thousands of years." "I ask you to evolve those principles," Morrison replied calmly. "The galaxy is changing, General. Species are advancing, developing new capabilities, discovering new possibilities. The Empire can either adapt to lead this change or be overwhelmed by it." Emperor Krexnall considered Morrison's words carefully. The human was right about one thing. The galaxy was changing. If humans could achieve such technological breakthroughs, independently, what other species might be capable of similar advances? "Captain Morrison," the Emperor said slowly, "your proposal has merit, but it requires careful consideration. The Empire does not make hasty decisions about fundamental policy changes. I understand, Your Majesty, but while you deliberate, I should mention that humanity has prepared for various contingencies." Morrison gestured, and the chamber's displays showed new tactical information. Human ships appeared throughout Imperial space, positioned near critical installations, supply routes, and communication hubs. "We have no desire for conflict," Morrison stated, "but we are prepared for it. Our ships are currently in position to disrupt Imperial operations across 17 sectors. We could cripple your supply lines, disable your communication networks, and strike at your industrial capacity before you could mount an effective response." "This is extortion," growled Defense Minister Yalgoth. "This is reality," Morrison corrected. "The Empire can choose to accept humanity as an equal partner, or it can try to maintain the old order through force. But the old order is already gone. Your own sensors failed to detect our approach. Your defensive systems were useless. Your intelligence was completely wrong about our capabilities. Chancellor Mordex leaned forward. Captain, what guarantee do we have that humanity will honor any agreement? What prevents you from using this technology against us in the future? Morrison's expression softened slightly. Chancellor, humanity does not seek to dominate the galaxy. We seek only to secure our place in it. We are offering partnership, not conquest. But partnership requires mutual respect. Emperor Krexnall made his decision. Captain Morrison, the Empire accepts the principle of formal diplomatic relations with humanity. We will establish a commission to negotiate the specific terms you have outlined, and the recognition of human sovereignty will be included in those negotiations. Morrison nodded. Your Majesty, I believe this marks the beginning of a new era, not just for humanity and the Empire, but for all species in the galaxy. As the communication ended, the Imperial Council sat in stunned silence. In a matter of days, everything had changed. The Empire's technological superiority was no longer absolute. Their military dominance was questionable. Their policies toward primitive species would have to be reconsidered. Emperor Krexnall stood before his council. We face a new galaxy, he announced, one where technological advancement can emerge from unexpected sources, where species we dismissed as primitive can develop capabilities that challenge our assumptions. We must adapt or risk becoming irrelevant. 3 months later, the Treaty of Zephyria Prime was signed, establishing humanity as the Empire's first recognized equal partner. The agreement included technology-sharing provisions, joint research initiatives, and mutual defense clauses. More importantly, it established the principle that technological advancement, not imperial decree, would determine a species' status in the galaxy. The age of imperial dominance through technological superiority was over. In its place emerged a new paradigm where innovation, adaptability, and cooperation would determine the balance of power. Humanity had forced the galaxy to evolve and, in doing so, had secured not just their own survival but their place as leaders in a new galactic order. Captain Jake Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he knew the real victory was not in forcing the Empire to negotiate. It was in proving that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, but their refusal to accept limitations others tried to impose on them.